Good morning, happy Monday. Welcome to Morning Scone, presented by Get Signed, digital autograph app for your smartphone. Please download it in your Google Play or App Store. And by the fact of the matter that you hit the button, I am very grateful. It means we're friends. But unless you hit the red subscribe button, then we cannot be best friends. So please hit the red subscribe button if you have not done so yet. LSU baseball and probably gets 2 out of 3 against Arkansas, so they get a series win over a top 5 team in the country. And the Pels take one on the chin in Game 4 at home. I was there courtside. I'd love to tell you all about that, so we'll do that too here on Morning Scone. Let me start with the LSU baseball. So last Monday, right here, if you remember, it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. There was no game, Pels game on Sunday. So last Monday on the show, what we did was kind of laid out the blueprint for how LSU could still host a regional. Now, it wasn't a prediction, but it was sort of, here's the blueprint. And it's plausible, but this is what they have to do. They got to take 2 out of 3 at home against Arkansas, which, again, LSU has, as we've talked about a bunch here and on the radio show, LSU's now won 13 of 14 series against, or 12 of 13 against Arkansas, which is just obnoxious. 13 of 14, just amazing. The way LSU's dominated this series. We also talked about how LSU had come into this weekend 7-2 in home SEC games. Arkansas was 2-7 in road SEC games. So we said, hey, look, Arkansas is a much better team, but it's plausible. Sweep Alabama, which is the worst team in the SEC, do that in your building, and then find a way to win 2 on the road at Auburn, and you're at 17 conference wins. You make a run in the SEC tournament, maybe into the weekend, and you're probably a regional host. Well, you can check the first box. LSU, after a heartbreaking loss on Friday, and on Saturday's Morning Scone, I really didn't hold back, because it's just been the MO of this team that they haven't found a way to win those close games, and it's each of the last 3 weekends that's happened. They led on Sunday late against South Carolina, lost. They led on Sunday, or Game 3, late against Ole Miss, lost. And then you saw it Friday night against Arkansas as well. And the flip side of that is, look at the margin, how razor thin it is in the SEC, because LSU's that close at this point to being at 15 conference wins, leading the SEC West, and being on everybody's list for a host site, and kind of getting in the mix for a national seed. That's how razor thin the margin is from that, and us talking about LSU being a team that's not even going to make a regional. So LSU put it together this weekend. They came, and good for them. They lost on Friday, heartbreaking fashion. They found a way to come back on Saturday. They got up early with 2 runs in the first, and they managed to rally Saturday night and get the win. And then Sunday, they led. Arkansas rallied in the top of the 5th to tie it at 1. Then LSU responded with 4 runs in the bottom of the 5th to take their commanding lead, and they were up 5-1 at that point. That had another one in the 6th to go up 6-1, and it looked like they were cruising. And then they faced adversity, which this team has faced. The difference was they found a way to wiggle off the hook, and maybe it's because they had a big enough lead. But a couple of things in particular about Sunday's game. First and foremost, let me talk about A.J. Labus, because LSU's waited for that number 3 starter early in the season. Labus is a guy that I talked about I liked a bunch because he's a strike thrower. And the reality is, in college baseball, like, we have these expectations because we watch so much college baseball, but the truth is they're still college kids, and not everybody throws strikes at a high volume. Not everybody is Aaron Nola. So when you see a kid like Labus, who is just a strike-pumping machine, you want him out there. Because when his command is that good, he can mix and match speeds, and he can move the ball on different sides of the plate, and he can confuse hitters. That's a rarity in college baseball. So my concern with Labus, though, is sometimes he catches too much of the plate, and that's when he's gotten in trouble. When he gets too much of the plate and teams hit him, and when you're facing an offense like Arkansas's, which is the best in the SEC, that could have spelled trouble, but it didn't. Labus threw 77 pitches. He came out of the game after 6 because his arm tightened up a bit on him, but 6 innings, just 4 hits, 1 run, no walks, which is always the key with Labus. He's never going to give away bases. And then he had the 3 strikeouts as well. So Labus gave you a chance going into the 7th inning to put this away if you could find a way to get 9 outs, which of course had been the problem for LSU up until this point. So they give the ball to Nick Bush, who is, as we talked about, the guy Paul Mainieri trusts. He's just after what he did against South Carolina and then what he did starting against Ole Miss, like that's just the guy that Maneri at this point trusts. And they went to him on Friday and he didn't have it. And they went to him yesterday and Arkansas was ready again. Bush did not record an out in the 7th. He had a leadoff walk and then went single, single, single. They went and got Matt Beck. And that's where the game changed because Beck has been sort of symbolic of LSU's bullpen struggles. Beck is also a strike thrower, and ever since he had the walk-off walk against Tulane about 3 weeks ago, he just hasn't been the same guy. And come out in the situation he was, no outs, second and third, to get the first two, and actually to look like he's out of the inning with the chopper to first was amazing. If you watch the game, Bain misplayed the ball at first and went through him into right field. Both runs scored. So now all of a sudden you're in a 6-5 ball game, and you got a runner on base. And at that point, he could have wilted. Beck could have just crumbled at that point, but he didn't. He came back, got a fly out, and then was stellar for the 8th and 9th, and didn't budge at all against the best lineup in the SEC to close it out. So phenomenal performance by Beck when he absolutely had to sort of, excuse the expression, nut up and go get outs. He did. I mean, that's what we talked about on Friday. Like nobody, or after Friday's game, like nobody on this team seemingly wanted the ball in a key situation. Beck was awesome. The other thing that I liked as well is that Maneri, going into the 8th and the 9th, he had Todd Peterson ready and then Austin Bain if Peterson got in trouble. So he very clearly now has a plan with how he wants to handle the end of the games. Todd Peterson is going to be in that closer role. Bain will be like the absolute next guy. Like if you have to have someone to come, turn off the spigot. But I think you've seen now what those roles are going to be, and I'd be very surprised if Labus wasn't starting Sunday against Alabama or Game 3 against Alabama this coming week. He's just a strike thrower, and Bama is not a good team. So it's all laid out there for LSU now. I mean, you got a series win against a top 5 team. I know everyone's going to look at the RPI, which only climbed a few spots, I think, to 51, but you got to trust the RPI is going to take care of itself. You keep winning SEC games, the RPI is going to normalize. So I wouldn't even sweat that at this point. Just keep climbing, keep racking up SEC wins, and your RPI, the metric will take care of itself. So it's a huge series win for LSU, and they get a midweek game against McNeese, and then they host Alabama. And then all of a sudden, maybe this LSU team finds their little spark with this series win over Arkansas, which came at a time when they desperately needed it. So we'll talk plenty, certainly, about LSU baseball throughout this week and heading into the weekend series against Alabama. Pels just absolutely eviscerated at home. We talked about Game 3 and how it was probably just that set of circumstances that New Orleans needed to win a game in the series, where New Orleans was 50% from the floor in Game 3, and Golden State was like 37% and 25% from 3. Well, all of that flipped in Game 4. New Orleans shot just 36% from the floor and 15% from 3. They scored 92 points. I mean, you give Golden State a bunch of credit for ratcheting up their defensive intensity, but the truth is, and I was sitting courtside, it was like there was a lid on the goal for New Orleans. They missed so many point-blank shots, and if you're not converting baskets against that team, you just don't have a chance. Alvin Gentry actually said it after the game. He said, if you're not scoring 110, 115, you don't have a chance to beat that team. And he's right. So it was an awful offensive day. They didn't get bench scoring. They got nothing from Mirotic, who I think was 1 of 7 from the floor. Let's see, Mirotic was... Mirotic was 1 of 7 points. Rondo was 2 of 10 for 6 points. They just got nothing from the role players on the team. So it's disappointing, but not altogether unexpected. But I'll tell you this much. And one more thing. So I'm sitting there in the first quarter. Actually, no, it was second quarter. And Kevin Durant is just hitting everything at this point. He was awesome last night. He had 30. Durant, I think, had 38. He had 38. And I'm sitting next to Anthony Piazza was sitting next to me, Phil's Oyster Bar. And Anthony's sitting next to me, and I say, hey, man, don't look up. Like, don't look up at the scoreboard. I said, just, hey, don't look up. How many points do you think AD has right now? And he goes, 2? 14. And it's like, it just didn't feel like it. Golden State had just neutralized everything New Orleans was doing. So it's disappointing, and my guess is on Tuesday Golden State closes it out at home. That was my pick initially. It was Golden State in 5, and I think they will finish it in 5. You saw yesterday why they're the best team in the world. They just are. I mean, when one of their superstars isn't going off, there's another one ready to pick up the slack, and when they play like that, nobody's going to. When they shoot 75% from the floor in the first quarter, just nobody's going to beat them. I mean, it was a 37-point first quarter for Golden State right from jump. They were on it. So now I will one parting note here. Go check out all my social media because I was courtside yesterday. A lot of you tweeted pictures at me of me sitting behind Steve Kerr. I was under the goal for much of the game. Then when it got out of hand in the fourth quarter, the guy who invited us knew someone who was sitting right behind the Warriors bench. They were leaving, handed him the tickets today if you want to go get a different vantage point. So he gave them to me and Erica to go sit over there. So my new Twitter avatar is a screenshot of me sitting right behind Steve Kerr going, while the Pels were losing by about 30. But go check out my Instagram. I got tons of pictures. Instagram is Matt Moscona, Moscona. If you can get to my Snapchat before Monday at about 4 o'clock, you might actually have an opportunity to see me dancing to DJ Jubilee at halftime, which was phenomenal. My Facebook account as well has got lots of pictures and videos. Courtside at an NBA game is the single greatest in-game sporting event to attend if you can do it. Even if it's a Tuesday, save up. If it's a Tuesday against Sacramento in December and you can find a way to score those tickets on the secondary market, do it, because there's just nothing like watching the size, speed, athleticism, and agility of those guys that close. So get courtside in an NBA game if you ever can. All right, I'll put a button here on Morning Scone. Please hit the red subscribe button. Peruse our other videos. Have a great Monday, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.